Or involuntary lethal injection or something. Just kill them.
I think something must have changed over at Fox News based on recent events, because they have dropped all pretense that they're not bloodthirsty monsters. Brian Kilmeade, one of the top hosts at Fox News, just said one of the most ridiculously disgusting things I think anyone's ever said on a news channel.
They have given billions of dollars to mental health and the homeless population. A lot of them don't want to take the programs. A lot of them don't want to get the help that is necessary. You can't give them a choice. Either you take the resources that we're going to give you, or you decide that you're going to be locked up in jail. That's the way it has to be now.
Or involuntary lethal injection or something. Just kill them.
Yeah, Brian, why did it have to get to this point?
Right.
Without a drop of irony in his voice, Brian Kilmeade is living up to his name and actually suggesting just killing homeless people for the crime of being homeless. And I'm sorry to get worked up here, but it's just ridiculous considering the state of political violence right now, something that they point out in the most ridiculous way. I mean, he should get fired not only for his comments about homeless people, but for what he says right here, this blatant lie about the assassination of Minnesota's state representative, Melissa Hortman.
And then June 14th, these Minnesota legislators were knocked out, were killed. Something to do with what's going on locally. They didn't like what Tim Walz was doing, or a former staffer of Tim Walz. Regardless, deranged actions, life and death.
Oh, they were knocked down or killed. It was some local stuff. Tim Walz was involved somehow. I mean, this is just blatant rewriting of history and trying to pretend like the left has a history with political violence when really like 75% of all political violence in the United States is done by right-wing weirdos. And of course, if anybody on the left said anything nearly as bad as what Kilmeade just said, they'd find themselves out on their ass faster than Kirk's security team. We don't have to look any further than MSNBC firing Matthew Dowd, and he was no progressive. He spent most of his career helping conservatives with his hack journalism, but he says one important thing and he gets shit canned for it. Of course, Kilmeade's comments are making the rounds across social media, with Gavin Newsom leading the charge. He says Proverbs 21:13, whoever closes his ears to the cry of the poor will himself call out and not be answered. It's so ironic how all of these right-wingers pretend to be Christians, but the one thing that Christ told you to do, take care of the poor, they refuse to do. They would have cast aside Jesus Christ as a socialist, communist, bleeding heart liberal if he was still around. Representative Eric Swalwell jumped in and said, "Call me crazy, Kilmeade, but don't you think we are better than euthanizing homeless people? Sure, lock up violent criminals, but when did we forget the Bible story of the weary traveler?" I think Keith Olbermann had the best response here. "Fundamental disconnect here, sir. I've known Kilmeade for 24 years, and he doesn't think. Not at all." "What would Jesus do?" Coyne replied, which, if you're getting called out by Christian-based cryptocurrencies, then that's how you know that you're low. Just to be clear, he's calling to outright murder homeless people. How does he still have a job? Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Terrence said, who else wanted to kill off groups of people he didn't like? Yeah, exactly. If they don't want us to call them fascist Nazis, why do they keep acting like fascists and Nazis? Representative Don Baer from North Virginia added on, America's homeless population includes over 1 million children and tens of thousands of veterans, many of whom served in Iraq or Afghanistan. Nobody deserves to be murdered by the government for mental issues or poverty. These Fox hosts are calling for mass murder. It's sick. Not 2 days ago, this entire network was calling out the left for their violent political rhetoric. Meanwhile, their hosts are literally calling for innocent people to get murdered for being poor. Former Republican Adam Kinzinger said, "My God, Kilmeade, what are you saying? Please, people, for the love of God, look at your hearts. This is just sick." But the problem that Kinzinger has here is that he thinks that Kilmeade has a heart. He's little more than a hollow husk of a man being stuffed full of money and made to dance by Rupert Murdoch. Now, the context of that conversation was them talking about that horrific murder of the Ukrainian woman on the bus. The perpetrator of that murder struggled with homelessness and was also in and out of prison and mental health facilities. So they just say that all homeless people with mental health need to get murdered? We're talking about almost 800,000 people in this country that should just get rounded up and either forced into institutions or forcibly executed. And it's not like this is just talk. We all know that Donald Trump is using D.C. as a stomping ground, a testing area, so that he can see how the American people are going to respond to the policy that he wants to enact. The president suggested that those who left D.C. would be given places to stay, albeit far from the capital. Yeah, I'm sure. Add that to the pile of lies. On a given night, about 5,000 of D.C. residents are unhoused, according to Community Partnership for the Prevention of Homelessness. Trump further said that the criminals would be put in jail where you belong, which he said would happen very fast, just like the border, only easier. There will be no Mr. Nice Guy, Trump added. We want our capital back. Trump's assault on D.C.'s unhoused population comes after he signed an executive order last month directing major cities and state authorities to begin clearing homeless encampments. Of course, that executive order didn't come with any allocated resources for homeless shelters or mental health facilities. The order claimed that shifting homeless individuals into long-term institutional settings, i.e. prisons, will restore public order, adding that surrendering our cities and citizens to disorder and fear is neither compassionate to the homelessness nor other citizens. You know what is compassionate to both? Just providing housing. Of course, this was paired with the Trump administration shutting down the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness. While the agency was authorized to continue operations until 2028, Musk's Doge placed all of its staff on leave. So they're just making it harder for homeless people to live while punishing them and treating them like criminals.
It's wrong what Trump did. He violated all our First Amendments and everybody else's Fourth Amendment. And now we have luggage that the cops take from us, personal documents, as if they are stealing our property.
Some of us played a role on our own homelessness. I'm not perfect, but I'm sure my rent was paid.
President Donald Trump's takeover of the D.C. police has hit the capital's homeless population.
Well, we actually arrested a total of well over 1,000 people. 49 homeless encampments have been removed.
Without warning, some of the homeless lost documents, notebooks, and other personal belongings during the raid on encampments. One man constantly travels with a cart and his 2 dogs, fearing his things will end up in the trash.
I pull this thing around, with my belongings in it, because I'm afraid that my stuff's going to be taken, thrown in the trash, discarded. That's kind of the way. I'm sort of feeling like I'm trash.
Hi, how are you? Good, you want everything? Perfect. Just a burger? You're welcome.
They want to take people's homes, take their tents, take their cardboard boxes where they sleep, then put us up in a hotel and get us housing. There's no housing.
The hospitals are filled. The jails are filled. Homeless population shelters are filled. If everything is filled and they happen to arrest us, where are we going to be? We're going to end up in the federal system, the Federal Bureau of Prisons. This idea about homelessness is BS. Law enforcement is not who I fear. Our Ward 8 is one of the most dangerous part of this city. But why fight with the police?
I've been unhoused for about 8 years. I'm 60 years old. I don't stay in the district anymore at night. I leave. I go to Virginia until the borders of District of Columbia, the atrocities they're doing here, go to there. And I guess I'll just keep pushing out.
Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser has laid out next steps for the city's handling of people experiencing homelessness. The mayor plans to run an additional census count of those currently unsheltered and connect them with available resources.
We want to know where they are so that we can connect them to services and get them to come inside. We don't expect that we're going to have homeless encampments, and we are going to work to make sure that people can come into shelter.
Thank you very much.
Now, while I hope that Mayor Bowser really has her homeless population's best interests at heart, I'm not really buying it, considering how she capitulated to Donald Trump taking over the police force. It seems like when she says that we're not really planning on having homeless encampments, that means we're not planning on having homeless people here at all, because I'm just going to let Trump push them out. The way that we demonize and dehumanize these people and pretend like their rights aren't important, that their livelihoods aren't important, that their materials, their personal property, like that's not important, is just completely ridiculous. In this excellent article from the Progressive magazine called The Real Cause of Homelessness, they hit on the main issue at the root of all of this. The rise of homelessness has resulted primarily from the hyper-commodification of housing. In New York City and much of the United States, urban studies scholar Peter Marcuse and David Madden write in their book, In Defense of Housing, housing is becoming ever less an infrastructure for living and ever more an instrument for financial accumulation. We've seen the rise of Airbnb, the rise of private equity owning housing, the rise of foreign equity owning housing. We're seeing landlords keep units empty because it's more economically feasible to do so. We're seeing dilapidated, abandoned, and run-down houses, like in Baltimore and in Detroit, being completely ignored because of the margins it would take to revitalize these houses. Instead of focusing on housing as a necessity for life that it is, we focus on it as a commodity for wealth accumulation. And that has the very real effect of driving people who cannot maintain a certain level of productivity out of housing and onto the street. History suggests that the only sensible way to end homelessness is through massive public investment in truly affordable housing and non-coercive services for the most vulnerable. We can't talk only about mental illness and housing and involuntary treatment. We need to roll all of that into a conversation about economic inequality and redistribution, a working-class politics that centers working people and their material conditions. That is the only way that I see change we need happening. That's coming from Kim Hopper, a medical anthropologist and professor at Columbia University. And I agree with Hopper. The only way we fix homelessness is to include it as part of a larger conversation about wealth inequality and resource distribution. You guys can stay up to date on the latest by subscribing to Really American. I'm Tony Hinderman, and I'll catch you next time.